This is for a text article for the BBC website where I'll be exploring the kind of phenomenon of polymathy and kind of what inspires these individuals and what kind of personality traits they share, that kind of thing. I was really interested to read your own paper on the subject, which I've just reread to kind of prepare for the interview, and I should think the interview will be very straightforward. I really just want to explore some of those points in a little bit more detail. And maybe the best place to start would be if you could just tell me a little about what inspired you to study polymaths, like where did that come from?
Well, I think there is a kind of a pursuit in the whole field of psychology for a construct that goes beyond general intelligence to explain things and to explain why some people are successful, etc. Some psychologists have gone to emotion, like emotional intelligence. Others have explored motivational aspects like grit, Angela Duckworth.
Yeah.
And I think even the discussion on mindset that's so popular among coaches nowadays has to do a little bit with that, with how even intelligent people can be locked up in some not so effective mindset. Anyway, I wasn't a student of psychology, like in a formal sense, but I had this hunch that there was something there. And I don't know, there were some kinds of people that were intelligent and did not appeal to me for some reason, but there were some kinds of intelligent people who I felt so drawn to, and I couldn't exactly pinpoint what that was. And also, I had something with me that I wanted to explore, but I wanted to explore and do something with that. And I wanted to explore in a more examined way to generate something with value. And then I had all these things lurking back somewhere in my mind. And in 2010 and 11, I had a group of friends. We were just having fun, and after our work, we went to each other's houses and drank a little bit of wine and whiskey and talked. Yeah. And we had many conversations about things about how we perceive the world and what was lacking and what kind of things that we discovered. And we also read some books. And one major book was Martin Eden by Jack London. And the book talked about the journey of a sailor, and with very humble background. But the man had so much vigor in his mind, and he wanted to go further. And he wanted to become a writer, and he could do it because of all this whole psyche working together. And there is this part in the book where the author, Jack London, says that if he put his mental effort towards something, he could achieve. And then after that, we read another book by Carl Sagan called Dragons of Eden, and he specifically talked about the polymaths in this book. I think it was in the 60s or 70s by this famous astronomer, Carl Sagan. And he talked about how different societies foster or hinder this kind of people, and how many great scientists and thinkers, scholars from different eras had this characteristic. And then it stuck in my mind, and I said, it clicked. Our attention just spans a very narrow fraction of the information that we have. So at that moment, many things, many ideas that were scattered in my mind integrated or converged into this idea, concept. And it was before I started my journey as a scientist, as a formal researcher. In fact, I became a formal researcher because I wanted to advance this idea, which is not very common. Generally, people are good students, and then they are invited, or they see a good opportunity in doing research, and then they proceed to that. And the ideas come from their supervisors, from people that they read later, but they do not start with a research agenda. And I had that before I started the master's, which was quite a challenge.
Yeah.
because the environment was not very welcoming to such new ideas. In fact, I was almost proposing a new subfield of polymath studies.
Yeah.
And it was only when I met Robert Root Bernstein. In fact, I sent him an email when I was struggling with convincing the people during my master's that polymathy was a worthwhile topic to be pursued. And it was a struggle. It was not easy. People ask me, "Oh, what's the literature on that?" And I say, if it's an innovation, by definition, you're not going to find much of the status quo about that. There is no status quo of something that you are creating, right?
Yeah.
And of course, people think that when you're doing the masters, you are not entitled to do something very new. And thanks to the support of Robert Root Bernstein, so I had the support from somebody who was important in the field, and it was support in a psychological level. Just when you send a letter to someone who has accomplished something as a scientist, and you are still struggling, so it gives you some psychological and moral support. That was in 2013, so 6 years. And since then, I was successful in pushing this agenda, and my master's was about polymathy. Of course, I was in the field of management, so I had to do something related to that. So I proposed the construct of polymathic leadership, and I tried to make some definitions right from the outset, and try to, in fact, demonstrate that what we call polymathy is a lot of different things. And after that, I wanted to give my contribution to the field. So, all right, we have started. We have some very interesting studies, but the field is absolutely very, very small. So we have the studies by Robert Root Bernstein, we have Bharat Sivaraman, we have James Kaufman, Ronald Beguero, some other people, but the formal, structured studies published in peer-reviewed journals or formal academic outlets, they are very, very scant. So what's the next step? So one thing that I felt that could be a major contribution in the beginning was to integrate all of the scattered ventures towards explaining polymathy. And one thing that I noticed is that there were some people in the history field, in the philology field, especially Peter Berg. He's a historian. He's a historian that I like a lot, specialized in the Renaissance period. And he has worked quite extensively on that period and on polymath and how this intellectual type, as he understands it, has evolved throughout history, and how the movements of societies foster and hinder this. And he calls it us an endangered species, but he has some specific views, and some other people have a more broader view on what polymathy entails. So some people think to be a polymath, you must be eminent in 2 or more domains, so you must be recognized, achieve renown in many domains. Some people think that they are personality traits or thinking traits. That's how Bharat Sivaraman called. Some people think that it's just expertise, just accumulation of knowledge and not generation. So they have different views. And Kaufman and Beguero have the 4C model of creativity, where you have mini C, little c, pro C, and big C. Big C is eminence, pro C is almost like that, but you don't have level of renown for some reason. Sometimes you have the competence, you have the skills, you have the ability, but for some reason society didn't recognize this work to the level of renown to be highly eminent. And you have the little c, mini c that can occur in every day. So at this level, everybody is a polymath, because everybody can think creatively
Yeah.
about small things. So we have to establish this cutoff point,
Yeah.
and this is not consensual. So
Cool.
I think I'm already answering the.
Yeah. So actually, that's the perfect opportunity. If you could tell me now, kind of how you personally then came to define polymathy, like what characteristics are important, or what qualifications or achievements are necessary for someone to be considered a polymath.
Yeah. So I think that through this integration, I hoped that I would find some common themes. Of course, if you have a historian, a psychologist, educator, and people from different fields examining the same phenomenon, you will expect different approaches.
Yeah.
But hopefully, there would be some integration. And in my opinion, there is. And for me, polymathy is about a lifelong relationship with knowledge. And here I have to qualify that knowledge is understood in broader terms. It's not a schoolhouse giftedness the person had that knows everything at school and memorized all the subjects. No. Even before this, the first documented attempt to integrate polymathy and define polymathy was done by a Hamburger philosopher or scholar in the 1600s. So he's called Johannes Wolver. And he understood that to become a polymath, you have two different streams of knowledge that you have to understand. The first one is doctrine. It translates differently to what we understand as doctrine today. It's not like following something to the word of it. It would be the systematized knowledge in the world. Just the knowledge that we have at school, or scientific knowledge. That the crystallized knowledge that society understands as valuable, as useful, as our heritage, let's say. And the other stream that a person should tread is the stream of personal experience. And he calls science that. So he puts as an important factor in this stream to explore and to travel. Peregrination is very important for him. But what's the core idea is that a person to become a polymath must understand the crystallized store of knowledge of humankind, but the person himself must also build his own store of knowledge, which will be unique due to his experiences. And the broader these experiences are, the broader the exploration, the broader the examination, and the broader one's capacity to integrate them and generate new insights, new theories, new understandings, the more the person will have. So it's a combination of acquiring the systematized knowledge by society and bringing your own integrations. And I pretty much agree with him. Of course, that's my interpretation of what he wrote. But even in ancient Greece, we had this discussion of Heraclitus. Americans say Heraclitus, but for me it's Heraclitus. Anyway, he had this criticism of polymathy because he was in favor of first-hand knowledge. And many people repeat Heraclitus's criticism as if they would agree that second-hand knowledge from books is not important. How come? How can you understand science doing everything by first hand? It's impossible nowadays. So you need some amount of trust and some amount of structured institutions that you can trust that the knowledge that those people are producing are in fact systematic, are in fact have a high degree of oversight, and you can trust their procedures and finally their findings, etc. And you have a way, at least, to grasp them. I think that's the problem, one of the problems of modern society, that science has become so arcane that people are so frustrated that those people in the ivory towers are telling this, but how can I be sure? Oh, anyway. So the Greeks didn't have this institution, but we do, and I think most people tend to believe that, or to agree that most of our knowledge can never be truly tested first-hand experience. So people are repeating the criticism of Heraclitus, but they do not understand, I think, or they don't want to see this other part. Anyway, that was a big qualification. Let me go back. So polymathy is about a relationship, a lifelong relationship with knowledge, understood as a broad idea, as a broad concept. And what is remarkable, so what is unique, what defines this relationship as polymathic, is that a polymathic person will try to first acquire knowledge in terms of breadth, depth, and integration. And second, there will be some will to generate novel integrations that are useful not only to the person but for society in a bigger scale. Sometimes it doesn't depend on the person, of course, if this discovery will become a big C, eminent, Nobel Prize winner insight. But there is a will of expressing oneself in terms of knowledge creation as well, not only in terms of knowledge acquisition. So these are the things. So acquiring knowledge, but not only that, a person who only acquires, I call this person a consumer. He's a consumer of the world. He's not a giver, he's not a producer. So generally, it's also what separates dilettantes from polymaths. And for me, it's also a convergent topic for many other scholars that I've read on topic. To be a polymath means being able to generate things and giving also these insights as a gift to society, as a means of expression. And expression is a very important topic in psychology. So I'm just getting those ideas and trying to converge on what it means for polymathic studies.
Cool. And then given the research that is available, and I guess from your own interactions with polymaths, I was really interested to know kind of how they achieve that kind of such a breadth and depth of knowledge, especially in terms of time management. Because we only have so much time in each day, and a lot of that has to be taken up with family, or with, if you're trying to make a living with one particular job that doesn't necessarily encourage your polymathy. Just how are they kind of achieving so much given the constraints around them?
Yeah, sure. It seems like a simple question, but in fact, it's a very broad question with a lot of ramifications. And time management is a key thing in polymathy. It's a key component, and it appeared in the study of Angela Cotolessa, the study experience of modern-day polymaths. It's something that I had anticipated theoretically in my studies. It's something that I saw in other studies, and I saw a lot in more popular opinions on polymathy. So, very important thing. When I wrote the article Polymathy, A New Outlook, I wanted to give an outline, to present an outline of what a polymathic personality would be, and describe more in psychological terms, and to lay out some specific things that would differentiate this type or this kind of personality from others. and some kind of expected outcomes. So I came with the concept of psychological benefits, psychological costs, and economical benefits and economical costs, and time management entered within the theme of economic benefits. Well, one thing that I went further was to try to understand if there were biomarkers. So I wanted to go to the biological level. That was my next step. In fact, that's the step I am right now.
Oh, yeah.
So are there biomarkers? Can we go?
The weak connection. But you were just saying about these biomarkers. And then it kind of cut off mid-sentence. So if you could just tell me a little about what those biomarkers would be that you'd hope to find. Yeah.
So there is this model by Rina Trofimova. Where the model studies the functional aspects of behavior. And she came to three aspects of behavior. One has to do with exploration of opportunities. What kind of things will you pay attention to? What kind of possibilities of action do you have? It could be related to some neurochemical systems, and this in particular is related to noradrenaline systems. And the second column would be related to making choices, prioritizing, making a sequence. What should I do first? What should I do next? So we have exploration, you have integration, and then you have the last column that's related to the maintenance, to the endurance of actions. So you already have a sense of what the world is, the options are. So you make your sequence, and then you continue doing this behavior. So these are the three columns. And we understand that when most people talk about polymathy, especially in the popular domain, in popular circles, they are talking about expansion of options all the time. Expansion. So try this, try that, try those, try everything you can. It's undeniable. That's one aspect of polymathy. But the two other aspects are really neglected. When you talk about polymathy, people in the popular domain or people in general are not aware of these other two very important aspects of polymathic people, is that they know very fast, or they make sense very fast of how they can prioritize their actions. Or how they can integrate different things. And besides that, they have developed an endurance to continue paying attention to some tasks, because polymathic people are able to finish projects. They don't have only one project, one life project. They have many. But to become a successful polymath, you have to be able to finish your projects. It's not easy all the time. We know about Leonardo da Vinci. He had trouble with some projects, but he did finish Mona Lisa. If he didn't, he wouldn't be the symbol that he is. All right? He had a lot of projects. Some of them he didn't finish. Some of them he just sketched, but some of them he did finish with a very high level of quality, which requires a lot of time, a lot of effort. Sustained effort in the direction of doing the best in that project. So that's something I would like to highlight. Polymathy is not only about expansion, it's about knowing to prioritize, making good choices, and knowing when to persist. And that goes to the wisdom aspect of human capacity. That's something that Sternberg talks a lot. That goes back to my first point, that the golden pot after the rainbow for psychologists. And I think I would like that the more scientists, more scholars could realize how rich the field of polymath studies can be, because it has the ability to integrate so many findings from many different areas that have never been, as far as I know, integrated before. So it has a very promising feature, this field, of bringing together some scattered findings that before there was no motivation to bring them together. And studying polymathy brings a new motivation to the field to tie many scattered pieces together. And in fact, this is the power of the polymath.
Yeah.
So let's go to time management.
Yeah.
So that's the most democratic thing we have in the world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody has the same hours.
Right.
But it's not as democratic as we would think.
No.
So what's problematic is that opportunities are not well distributed.
Yeah.
So some people have the opportunity to hire other people to do less meaningful work. And of course, they will have more free time on their hands. Some people are paid more for their hours than others. So some potential polymaths having to do other kinds of work that instead of the work that could be more beneficial to them, of course, and even to society, because there is such a challenge in how we can find a way to communicate value in society.
Yeah.
For example, I'm here talking to you about polymathy. There seems to be popular interest in the topic, but I was never paid a penny to do research on that. I am paid to do research in finance. So is it the best allocation of my time? I don't know. Probably not. But that is the set of choices that I have. So polymathic people can work well with the set of choices that they have and make good plans on how to expand this set of choices so it can be more conducive for them to be even more polymathic. But that's not a fair race, of course. So some people start with a broader set of opportunities and some people with a very narrow. So narrow that they can never make it. So that's a big question on how can we tackle this problem.
No, that's great. I really wanted to explore that particular point because it does seem to me that, especially if you come from a poorer background and, you have to spend a lot of time in a job that's not paying a lot, like your then opportunities to kind of pursue other interests are like really limited. So you're much less likely to than someone who comes from a wealthy background. I think that's really answered most of my questions. So thanks so much. It's been like a really fascinating conversation. My last point really would just be a bit about what you personally have taken away from this research in your own pursuits and interests. Has it encouraged you to take up any new activities or to delve into something completely different that you might not have looked into had you not been studying polymaths in this way, in this formal way?
Yeah. I think the scientific pursuit brings, one of the values of science, and more specifically social science, is that it brings some systematization to things that you already have a hunch or you already have an idea or an insight. But when you start studying those things that are important to you and that are important to society in a more rigorous way, in a more examined way, you can build better theories or a better idea of how something works and how something can work for you and how you can utilize that to grow. So polymathy studies for me is completely entangled with my life journey, because of course I also decided that systematizing knowledge would be something I would do for life. But even if I hadn't made this decision, I would pursue the systematization of knowledge to help me really understand what are the drivers behind something. Well, how could something change in a way that's going to be more producive? So, of course, I could go and try to do it myself every time. But being able to access this store of wisdom that
Yeah.
other very intelligent, very wise, very nice humans have deposited there. And scientific instruction is the key to access this knowledge.
Yeah.
Nowadays
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have the internet. Before, I would have to go perhaps to the Oxford Library
Right.
to have access to all this
Yeah, yeah.
knowledge. And now I can have. It's not perfect. It's not completely democratized. We have some barriers. We have the large companies that don't want to put some articles free. We have this battle. But it's much, 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 much better before than it was ever in any time of history. So we have a unique opportunity to produce polymaths in places where polymathy would never be possible. In fact, I come from Brazil. I'm in the Brazilian city right now, where I would never have physical access to the resources that I have nowadays because of the internet. In fact, if it wasn't because of the internet, I think I wouldn't be the polymath I am. No, I'm certain that I wouldn't be, because I'm not from an advanced country, and in fact, I didn't have so many opportunities that people at the best positions have there. And it was due to this possibility that I could acquire knowledge, and because some knowledge was accessible. So anyway, for me, it converges in so many points. So the scientific pursuit, the pursuit to systematize knowledge and to systematize what polymathy means, not only to me, for me, but for society in general. And more importantly, how fostering polymathy in individuals. And I'm also bringing that polymathy can be a construct utilized by teams, by organizations, by institutions. So how a polymathic world, so not only polymathic people, but institutions, rules of the game, organizations and teams that can work with breadth, depth, and more integration. So how can this change the world? And I think that's a very powerful idea that can be utilized in so many realms of human experience. So in the end, we are talking about enhancing the human experience. And I would like to end with a thought by an existentialist, a philosopher, Albert Camus. And it's funny that the existentialists are known for their claim that everything is an absurd. The world is an absurd. We have no a priori, way to go, a priori normative ethics. So everything's an absurd. But given this scenario, he said, if we lived in this ephemeral island of existence, our job, our role is to explore, examine, and enrich this world. And it fits perfectly with the ideas of breadth, depth, and integration. Because to explore means to augment breadth. Examine, you need depth. And to enrich the world, you need to generate new integrations that were not there before. So it fits so nicely.
Yeah, that's perfect. Cool. Well, it's been a real pleasure, and I've got so much great material here to work with. So, I'm really happy with how the interview's gone.
Okay, thank you. If you need anything, just send me an email. Okay, thank you, Dave.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.